Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the OUA Basketball Show. My name is Griffin Porter. Thank you all so much for joining us once again this week. Only 1 week remains in the regular season. It's the most exciting time of the year as we start to zero in on our playoff pictures, get ready for the postseason. So let's just get straight into it here, folks. What I'm going to do for you right now is I'm going to bring you an updated look at the playoff picture for both leagues with last weekend's results. And then we can go forward from there to our great guest today. So why don't we start on the women's side? I'm going to warn, this is a bit of reading at you. A lot of results to get through here. We're trying to touch on every playoff hopeful team right now. We'll start at the top of the women's side. Queens went 2-0 last weekend. They now improved to 20-1 on the season. They are your number one seed as things stand right now, but they have not clinched that yet because TMU is hot on their heels. They've won 3 games since we last talked. They beat Guelph, Waterloo, and Toronto, so they are now 19-2. Technically, they could get up to 20-2, and if Queens loses their final game, we'll get into that more after the break, the tiebreaker would go to TMU there. Third place right now belongs to Windsor. Belongs to Guelph. They are still tied with Windsor, both teams at 16-5 after they each won one and lost one this weekend. The Griffins lost to the Bold but beat Algoma, and Windsor beat York, but they lost to Lakehead. So those two teams still tied right now. Guelph gets the 3rd seed as a result of the tiebreaker. Windsor falls to 4th. They're only half a game up on Carleton, who are 15-5. They picked up a big Capital Hoops win, 87-60 over the Ottawa GGs. They also beat Brock 80-50, so a couple of really convincing wins for the Ravens as they tighten their hold on 5th place and have an eye on 4th. If Windsor or Guelph falters a little bit in this final weekend, they could move up. 6th place right now still belongs to the Western Mustangs. They're at 13-8 after splitting last weekend's games. They lost to Lakehead and beat York. 7th place on the women's side right now is Brock. They're 12-8 after a win versus Ottawa, 72-64, and a loss to Carleton. Tough Ottawa weekend there for them. Good for the Badgers to grab a split. 8th place belongs to Laurentian. They sit at 11-9, just 1 game behind Brock. There's still a ton of these seeds up for grabs with 1 week left to go in the regular season. Brock lost to Queens but beat Ontario Tech to stay in the hunt for one of those home playoff games in the first round. 9th place right now belongs to York. They're currently at 10-10. They lost to Western and Windsor this weekend. A really tough schedule considering the time of year for the York Lions as they fall to 10-10. Ottawa also 2 losses to Carleton and Brock. Also a tough schedule, so they fall to 10-10 as well. The Lions have the tiebreaker over the GGs because they beat them in overtime in January. So right now York is the 9 seed and Ottawa is the 10 seed. The 11 seed is the Waterloo Warriors. They're sitting at 9-12 on the season. They beat Toronto last weekend, but they lost to TMU and McMaster. And right now, as it stands at this moment, our 12 seed is the McMaster Marauders, who are 9-13. They picked up a couple of big wins against Waterloo and Algoma. They're done. That's their full 22 games, 9-13. But what's really interesting is that in 13th place right now, after 2 gigantic wins against Windsor and Western, who are 2 well-cemented playoff teams, you have the Lakehead Thunderwolves, who are now 8-12. And if you can do math at home as well as I can here, that puts them half a game behind McMaster. So, if Lakehead wins one of their final games this weekend, and we'll get more into that after the break, they could sneak into the playoffs. Like I said, more details on that after. Jump over to the men's side now, where our first seed still belongs to the Carleton Ravens despite losing both of their games this weekend. They got blown out at Capital Hoops 73-52, and then they lost to Brock 84-79. So a tough weekend for the Ravens as they lose to 2 of the good teams in the OUA. However, still hanging on to that number 1 seed, but hot on their heels, the Western Mustangs, who beat York 95-68. They needed that bounce back win. They got it. However, they did lose to Lakehead, so they are still not our first place team. 3rd place has now been taken from the Brock Badgers by the TMU Bold. They put up 3 wins since we last talked against Guelph, Waterloo, and Toronto, winning the games that they're supposed to win there for the Bold. So they're at 16-5, half a game behind them at 15-5 are their division rivals, the Brock Badgers, who, as I mentioned, picked up a win versus Carleton, but lost to Ottawa 90-62. So that's what drops them down to the 4 seed instead of hanging on to the 3 seed. Fifth place right now belongs to Ottawa at 14-6. We mentioned already they picked up good wins against both Carleton and Brock. The GG's starting to catch some momentum, and that puts them comfortably ahead of Lakehead in 7th at 12-8. They also picked up a good couple of wins this weekend against Windsor and Western, so the Thunderwolves trying to get into a good groove heading into the playoffs. Guelph is our 8th seed at 11-10 with a win against Algoma, but a loss to TMU. They are tied right now with Windsor, win versus York, but a loss against Lakehead. For the Lancers, we'll get into tiebreakers if we need to after the following weekend's games. 10th place right now fittingly belongs to the 10-10 Laurentian Voyageurs. They took a couple of losses against Ontario Tech and Queens last weekend, so that sent them tumbling down a couple places in the standings. 11th right now belongs to the University of Toronto Varsity Blues. They took a loss to TMU, but they did beat Laurier, so they're now at 10-11, only a half a game behind Laurentian. And Laurier right now is at 9-11 after picking up that aforementioned loss to the Blues. All right, let's get into our guest today. Joining me from the Brock Badgers, Andrew McKenna. All right, my guest today is a former member of the OUA All-Rookie team. He's returned to the OUA this season. He's having a great year with the Brock Badgers. Andrew McKenna, thanks so much for coming on the OUA Basketball Show.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to the OUA, first of all. It's been a great year for you here. You've returned to Brock. You've grabbed a spot in the starting lineup, and how's the season been going so far?
Yeah, no, it's been really good. It's been super refreshing being back here. I think it's just like what I've realized. It's a blessing to be able to play the sport that I love with the people that I love being around, like with my teammates, my coaching staff. Like it's a breath of fresh air, really, just to be back with everyone and just doing the thing I love.
That's fantastic to hear. So for those who don't know, we mentioned you're really sort of grabbing more minutes this year, grabbing a role in the starting lineup. But if some people haven't had the chance to watch Brock yet, can you just tell a little bit about your game? How would you scout yourself out there on the field?
How would I scout myself?
Yeah. What's the big strengths here?
So I mean, I'm a bigger guy, so I'm a bigger guard, so I play on the wing. I like to get basically I play it through matchups. So like if I have a smaller guy on me, I'm gonna take him to the post, low block. If I have someone who's like bigger, stronger, I take him out to the perimeter because I can attack on the wing. And just kind of like read closeouts if someone comes to help, get rid of the ball, respace, kind of keep the game really simple. Like where am I most effective is just making simple plays, being aggressive to make the easy play. Like that's like where I kind of am at my best is when I'm just letting the game come to me and not just making dumb reads or something like that. So just letting the game come to me and just playing from what I see.
Awesome. Yeah, and you've really been playing some of the best basketball of your OUA career lately here. It feels like you just turned in a OUA career high against Lakehead a couple weeks ago. The Badgers are heating up down the stretch, and you've been a big part of that. How, like, this second half of the season, are you still, like, gaining confidence, gaining your footing back with the team and still growing here?
Yeah, I mean, every day is like a learning process. Every day you have to show up and be ready to compete at your highest level. Some days obviously are not going to be perfect, but you gotta be able to look yourself in the mirror and say what you were doing wrong the day before, so you can get better each day. So yeah, I don't think I still feel super confident going in to like the next games that we have this weekend and the playoffs coming up. So yeah.
Yeah, well, speaking of the next games coming up this weekend, there's some big ones. If you guys can put up a couple of wins, there's a good chance that you'll come away with the division title here. Does that make you, like, just personally, do you get up more for the big games? Do you prepare differently at all? Is it easier to lock in?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just another game. It's another opportunity to get better. Sure, like a divisional title would be cool and all, but like at the end of the day, like as a team, as a collective group, we are just trying to get better each day. And we have two opportunities this weekend just to get better. And we're mostly focused on just the game on Friday, which is tomorrow. So I'm more focused on that game more than anything. So just getting ready to prepare for that. And yeah, that's all we're focused on, really.
Yeah, it seems like a great mentality to me. Last time you were with Brock a couple seasons ago, you guys had a phenomenal OUA playoff run. You went to the final eight. What did you learn from that you're still hanging on to here as we get into the most important games of the season?
Yeah, so like my first year, it was a big learning experience for sure.
Yeah.
Overall, our record wasn't great, but I think we were able to turn it on towards the end because a lot of the guys on the team kind of recognized like what we were doing during the year just wasn't working, and it kind of just came down to everyone just kind of doing their job. Um, Everyone kind of finding the role at the right time. So I think that's kind of like a big step that's we're gonna have to take going on forward. And this year is that everyone needs to buy into the role and do it to their best of their ability.
Yeah. So it sounds like the team is bought in. Like as I mentioned, things are going really well for Brock right now. You guys picked up a big win against Carleton last weekend. What's sort of the mood in the locker room now? What's the vibe? Are people feeling good or ready for the playoffs to start?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I was saying earlier, like we're morely focused on the games coming up this Friday and Saturday. So we're not really focused on playoffs coming up. Obviously, it has been talk, but it's just like we're just trying to get better each day of practice, and just kind of like build on each day, get 1% better, and stuff like that. But yeah, no, the locker room is really good right now. The guys, like, this is like the best team I've ever been on. Like I love each one of the guys on the team, so it's really a great spot to be.
Sounds like a well coached team there too. You guys sound like you're locked in mentally. All right, Andrew. In that case, I'm going to let you go here. And you mentioned you got some big games to prep for. We got film
Sure.
and practice to get done here. So really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for coming on the show.
And no, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
My thanks again to Andrew for making the time to come on the show. Great to chat with one of the young up and comers in the OUA. Can't wait to see what he and Brock can do in the playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, we've got one weekend left before we get into that precious postseason. And there's still a lot of games with a lot of playoff implications left. So let's go through some of the games to keep an eye on this weekend if you're curious about which schools can make the playoffs, what the seeding's going to be, and stuff like that. Carleton, they're trying to hang on to the number one seed. On the men's side, they've got Laurentian and Nipissing, two games that they should win. If they do that, they'll hang on to the number one seed no matter what Western does in their game against Algoma. Up next, Brock, they've got Laurier and Waterloo as they try to fight with TMU, who plays Lakehead. Lakehead's got a ton to play for. TMU also a lot to play for. So that TMU Lakehead game on the men's side, a lot on the line, especially if you expect Brock to pick up both of those wins against Laurier and Waterloo. Ottawa and Queens both have winnable games to finish out the season, so we expect if they do win those games, as we thought they might, Queens will finish one win behind Ottawa. Lakehead, TMU, and Toronto for Lakehead, they're going to really want at least one of those wins against Toronto. The second one against TMU would be really nice if you can get it. So we'll see as they try to fend off Guelph. They've got a game against York to finish off their season as Windsor, who right now is tied with Guelph, plays Algoma. So both of those teams want to win that game so that they can stay in the tiebreaker for that 8 seed, the final home playoff game. Laurentian has a tough couple of games to close their season. They've got Carleton and Ottawa. They're right now fighting for their playoff lives. They want to not drop to 10 and 12 if they can avoid it. Toronto, their final game is against Lakehead. They would also love to avoid to drop to 10 and 12. Could be a couple 10 and 12 teams here as we close out the season. And Laurier right now, who is our 12th seed at 9 wins and 11 losses, they've got Brock and York to finish out the season. In order to make the playoffs, they just need to win one of those two games. If they win one, get up to 10 wins on the season, that'll be enough to fend off Ontario Tech or Waterloo. But if they lose both and drop to 10 and 12, they could end up in a potential tiebreaker with either Waterloo or Ontario Tech or both. So still plenty of scenarios left to be played out on the men's side. We'll jump over to the women's side. Queens is hoping to ramp up for the playoffs with a game against Ontario Tech that they should win. TMU has Lakehead for their final game of the season. That's a very important game for Lakehead. We'll get to them in a little bit. Windsor, right now, they only have to face Algoma before they head into the playoffs, so they'll be hoping to tune up there as well. Guelph has to play York. York, that's a crucial playoff game, or a crucial game with playoff implications for them. Guelph wants to stay tied with Windsor there, so that'll go back and forth as well. Carleton at 15-5 right now. They've got Laurentian and Nipissing to finish out the season. 2 wins that they'll be hoping to pick up there. Western right now only has 1 game left. That's against Algoma. They'll probably be picking up a win there, but even if they do, they can't catch Carleton for that 5 seed. However, they can be caught by Brock if Brock wins both of their games against Laurier and Waterloo. The Badgers just half a game behind the Mustangs. Moving on now to our 8 seed, Laurentian. We mentioned it's tough on the men's side. It's tough on the women's side too. Carleton and Ottawa for Laurentian as they try to hang on to that 8 seed. They're only 1 game ahead of the York Lions, who currently sit tied with the Ottawa GGs at 10-10. So Laurentian against Ottawa, that game will have massive playoff implications as it'll also help settle the tiebreaker. They're both going to desperately need a win in that one. York for their final weekend has Guelph and Laurier. Waterloo, they've only got 1 game left against Brock in the 11 seed right now. And McMaster, we mentioned beforehand, is done. They are locked in at 9-13. They have played all 22 games. Now, Lakehead is right now our team on the outside looking in for the women's side. They have got TMU and Toronto the rest of the way. And with an 8-12 record, they only need to win 1 of those games to tie McMaster, which would bring us to the tiebreaker. These 2 teams have played twice this season. McMaster won the first game 67-65, very narrow win, and because the second tiebreaker is point differential in a head-to-head game, what really matters here is that Lakehead won game 2 68-63. They still a very tight win, but they won by 5. They only lost by 2, which means by my calculations, the tiebreaker will go to Lakehead. So if Lakehead beats either TMU or Toronto this weekend, they squeeze in on a remarkable run to claim that final playoff spot. If they lose them both, McMaster will get the final spot. So, really interesting stuff on the line here. Hey guys, Griffin here in the edit room. Just wanted to clarify one more thing that I quickly caught here. There is also a chance that on the women's side, Waterloo, if they lose to Brock, they drop to 9-13 as well. So we could have 3 teams in a 3-way tie for the final playoff spot at 9-13. And I spent a long time trying to figure out exactly how to calculate that, and I'm going to leave that to the good people at the OUA to determine who would get the final playoff spot in that specific scenario, but I just wanted to clarify that that is a possibility as well, a 3-team tie for the final playoff spot on the women's side. All right, thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the OUA Basketball Show. My name is Griffin Porter. We got 1 week left. Enjoy it, and I'll see you next week to talk about playoffs.